I'm at the
Dworshak Fish Hatchery.
Dworshak National Steelhead Fish Hatchery in Orofino, Idaho, actually Acacia, which is 4 miles out of Orofino. And sir, what do we have in front of us here?
So what you have is an egg series or fish series. So basically right at spawning time, this is what the eggs look like. We'd call those green eggs.
Okay.
This would be at a newly fertilized. And this is the same for steelhead or chinook.
So you raise both Chinook and steelhead?
Spring Chinook salmon. We raise about 1.65 million spring Chinook salmon to the smolt stage. We raise about 380,000 to about 3 inches that get transferred to the Nez Perce Tribal Hatchery, at which point they advance them to the smolt stage. We raise about 300,000 additional par of the spring Chinook that are transported by the Nez Perce tribe to the upper Selway River.
Okay.
Steelhead, we raise about 2.1 million steelhead. 1.2 million of those are released right here from the facility, and this is the brood facility, so they can return here.
Okay.
About 900,000 steelhead are trucked further upstream and released at Clear Creek, Red House Hole, or Lolo Creek.
Okay, and the tribal hatchery that you're referring to is near what town?
So downstream, Cherry Lane Bridge, so it's just downstream from Lenore, between Lenore and Lewiston, Idaho.
Okay, I know where that's at.
Yeah, basically 4 hatcheries on the Clearwater. So you got the downstream hatchery, Nez Perce Tribal Hatchery, which is operated by the Nez Perce tribe. You have Dworshak here, which is operated by the Fish and Wildlife Service and the Nez Perce tribe. You have the Clearwater Hatchery right across the river, which is operated by the Idaho Fish and Game. Then you have the Kooski Hatchery, which is just outside of Kooski, Idaho. And that's operated by the Nez Perce tribe as well.
Okay, so do you know how many tribal steelhead hatcheries there are, steelhead slash salmon hatcheries in this area?
So just in the Clearwater, there's 4 hatcheries here, 2 of which are operated by the tribe.
Okay, okay.
You know, across the Northwest, there's, I don't even know what the numbers would be, but...
Okay, and how do you get your eggs, your beginning stock of eggs that you start with?
So we'll focus on steelhead. So we have a ladder on station, fish return. We run water through the ladder. Those fish have imprinted on our water supply, so they want to return here.
Oh, great.
Once we've acquired brood stock, when it's time to spawn them, which is determined by them when they're what we call ripe, the eggs, females soften up and the eggs will flow fairly freely. We spawn them in these jars. This is what a newly fertilized egg, or what we would call a green egg, newly fertilized. They're very fragile at that stage. For our steelhead, when we're heating water to about 54 degrees, in about 16 days we reach the eyed stage. The next jar over is just an advanced stage. You can see the eyes are more pronounced and a little bit more development, like the neural tube, backbone, more features. Once they get to the stage where they've hatched, they have a yolk sac on them, which you can see. So here they're still encased in the egg sac, or in the egg itself. Once they've hatched, and then it still looks like they have an egg, but it's just a yolk sac. Looks like a little balloon on the bottom. That's where they're getting all their nourishment from. Once they've used that up, we call it the button-up stage. They're not quite there at this stage.
So without being fed, they reach that 3-inch smolt stage then, right?
Once they've used that yolk sac, then you have to start supplementing feed.
Okay.
But yeah, you take a fair amount of feed to get them to that size.
Okay.
So, and if you notice as you go, pretty round, kind of an awkward fish. Typically at these stages, they're down on the bottom of the creeks in the wild. It takes a lot of energy for them to try to swim up carrying that yolk sac. So
Okay.
typically you see them down in the reds.
So they're all imprinted to return to the source where they're put in the river at then. Okay, great. Do you have, it's probably not your department to know this, do you have any idea of what there is hatchery fish in these local rivers in the Clearwater system versus wild fish? Are there any wild fish left?
Very few wild fish, you know, they're an important resource, but yeah, very, very few.
Oh, I see. So
we
basically, when I'm driving down the road and I see a steelhead fisherman out in a boat or on the bank or fly fishing or lure fishing, they're actually catching almost all the time hatchery-raised fish.
Majority, yeah. Very high percentage of hatchery fish.
If it wasn't for that, they probably wouldn't even have a season, right?
That'd be correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have some programs like with Steelhead. We have 200,000 of the 2.1 million that we raised that we don't clip the adipose fin on, and so those would have the same phenotypic or external characteristics of a wild fish.
So out of all of these hatchery-raised fish that you release in the river, what percentage do the adipose fin get clipped, which makes them a legal fish to keep for a sportsman?
Yeah.
What percentage would you say get clipped?
Well, it's 1.9 million out of 2.1 million, so...
Oh, it's a lot.
Yeah, so almost all of them other than 200,000.
Do you...
Those are U.S. versus Oregon settlement agreement numbers, and what that does is it puts some fish out there. Those fish are all released up at Lolo Creek, and so when those fish return, tribal anglers can harvest those fish.
Okay.
Non-tribal anglers cannot.
And I was raised in Magic Valley, and we also have steelhead hatcheries down there. So there's a lot of hatcheries contributing to planting these steelhead in the Idaho River systems. Are you allowed to tell me where your funding for these facilities come from? Since this one isn't tribally owned, do the tribes share in any profits from a hatchery like this, like the Dworshak hatchery here that we're at?
So this is all funded through federal government, so a combination of the Corps of Engineers and behind the scenes Bonneville Power Administration pays for about 92% of everything we do. So, you know, we're federal government, so it's not a profit type thing. It's reimbursable agreements for us to raise the steelhead for the Corps, for core mitigation. As far as the facility, the Corps of Engineers owns the facility. It's been operated for the first many years exclusively by the Fish and Wildlife Service. In 2005, with the Snake River Basin Adjudication Settlement, the agreements to have this facility become joint managed by the Fish and Wildlife Service and the Nez Perce Tribe. So as far as funding, the Fish and Wildlife Service as an organization isn't funding this operation. The funding is provided through agreements to the Fish and Wildlife Service through the Corps of Engineers or the Lower Snake Compensation Plan program. Looking at here, these are steelhead that were spawned last winter, so from what we would call a 2018 brood year. They went through incubation, hatched out, went through the nursery out here, tagged. They're now in their what we would call our final rearing ponds. These will be released early April, and that's where they'll start their journey out to the ocean.
How many fish would you say was just in one of these fish runs here?
So this one, it's both sides. You're looking at, it varies because we've got different batches of fish, but between 35,000 and 45,000 fish in each of these, what we call Burroughs ponds.
And you have a lot of them too.
Yeah, there's 25 in this system, 25 in that system, system 2, and then we've got about 8 ponds, 9 ponds going over in system 3. We're just steelhead. Right now we've got about 2.4 million steelhead on station for this year class.
That's a lot of steelhead that's going to be contributed to the Clearwater River systems here. This is wonderful.
And these are the B-run steelhead that historically ran right up the North Fork. And again, that's why this facility was initially constructed, was to mitigate for the the changes associated with the construction and operation of Dworshak Dam.